And it's just obviously wanting to talk about pensions. So I announced changes for the Manx pension, which will come in if they're agreed to from February. Tim Ward moving forward. Just outline what is actually going to change in that first place.
Yeah. Well, we've in 2016, one of my predecessors got through a change in the pension system, so that we had previously linked to the UK. So whatever they put it up by, we had to put it up by. So for anyone who's retired from April 2019 is on what's called the Manx state pension, which is over £240 a week. And that we have control over. But at the moment, we're still pegging it to what the UK do. One of the proposals we discussed back in Tynwald last year was the National Insurance Fund. We know that will run out by 2047 if we do nothing. That means that people who are, today who are 48, their pension could be in jeopardy. So what we want to do is protect the NI fund, and the best way of doing that, when we've looked at all the modelling, is to move away for those third of pensioners who are on the new Manx state pension and give them a Manx guarantee that their pension each year will go up by the rate of inflation on the island or by 2%, whichever is greater. And that guarantees their pension keep rate with the inflation and the rise in prices on the island, but also guarantees the National Insurance Fund, both for them and for the pensioners of tomorrow.
Just on that, I suppose the thing, simple question is, how does it guarantee that? Because they were told 8 years ago there was a guarantee. Now you're telling them, oh, that was a guarantee then, this is a guarantee now. What's to say there's another guarantee in 5 years?
Yeah. Well, that's a very good question. And actually, every 5 years, we get some government actuaries to come over from the UK, look at our pension scheme, and actually say, through the National Insurance Fund, whether it's still sustainable. Now, for over a decade, they've been saying that if you do nothing, this is going to run out. And that time when it runs out has come closer and closer. So we're now talking about 2047. So I think it is part of a responsible government to actually have this conversation with people to say, we want to preserve your pension now and in the future, but to do this, we're going to have to make some minor changes now to guarantee your pension, but also guarantee that the fund stays as it is and actually grows.
And just on that, there is a section which allows it has to be at a certain level, double the annual output. That's been seen by some as a potential thing of opportunity for government to grab money out of the fund. What is the actual intention, or what is the potential behind it, or is the intention to use that money?
There are no plans to raid the NI fund. It's currently £1.1 billion. It's invested through various investment managers, and it brings in interest that then comes straight back into the fund itself. What we were saying, though, is with all the projections, if we do nothing, that fund would drop off. Mm-hmm. And so we had to set a benchmark that when it got to twice the amount you're paying out, you need to do something. And at the moment, that would be either increase the retirement age, which I've pledged that I wouldn't do because it's already going to be increased to 68 in the future. And as people get older, they're less able to work. They literally wear out. So there's that, or put up employee or employer contributions. Now, we're trying to bring those down and actually make it more affordable for people to live on the Isle of Man. So putting those up, again, for me would be a retrograde step. What we need to do is look at the NI fund, invest it properly, guarantee its safety, but also look at how we're paying out benefits now and in the future to make sure that's sustainable. So there are no plans to raid the NI fund in any way, but we do need to make sure that if we've got projections to say it's going to start dropping off, that we actually have a guarantee that when it gets to a certain level, we're going to intervene.
And just on that, it does talk about the motion, the thing that was sent out, talks about where that could be invested. Again, is the thinking behind that, is that a political point, or it should just realistically be how much money, where's we can get the most money to go back into the pot? What is more important, basically?
Yeah, and again, that's the decision for Tynwald, very, very much. At the moment, most of our investments are done off-island in terms of shares, stocks, bonds. One of the issues that we have is, would we be better to invest that money on island? So at the moment, we're looking for the best return for the fund. Should we also be looking at the best return for our community? So investing that fund in housing, which still gives money coming back into the fund, So those are conversations for the future, but you can't have those until you've actually got the fund stable. And at the moment we haven't. At the moment we know it's going to run out if we do nothing. So the proposals that we're bringing forward in the budget and the proposal discussed by Treasury, by Tymble beforehand, we're looking at how we could sustain it in the long term.
And just again, for this all coming from people who are, some of whom or have already retired, was there an element of whether there's a fairness in doing that to people who are effectively already finished with their working lives? We're expecting this money over a certain time. They might look at that and go, well, this triple lock, the sort of infamous triple lock list, isn't going to be there now. Is not an element of, could that have been pushed back to, say, if you retired from 2025 April onwards? Or
the triple lock is not a bit of legislation. It was a political decision made by David Cameron and the coalition government back in 2010 in the UK. The UK have not applied it at certain times, and there is increasing conversations in the UK that it's not sustainable for them either, and they may well get rid of it. We have no say over that. What we do have a say over is how we deal with our pensioners on the Manx state pension going forward. And that's why guaranteeing that will go up with the rate of Isle of Man inflation, which normally tracks a little bit more than UK inflation, is absolutely right. For example, some of the benefits that are linked to the UK in this year's budget will be going up by September UK CPI, which is 1.7%. What we're intending to propose is that the benefits we pay for Manx people go up by Manx inflation, which is 2.2%, so 0.5% higher than people will be getting in the UK. And it's that sort of difference that I think is really important going forward to guarantee that people's pensions will go up with an indicator of how much it costs to live on our island, not across.
This has attracted some interest from across as well, in terms of, I know the IDE newspaper have contacted people, and have you been surprised by that it's drawn the attention as much as it has?
Yeah, I have, because what we've tried to get across is we're not scrapping the triple lock. We're keeping absolutely our commitment to pensioners, but we're looking at how we can protect the National Insurance Fund and protect pensions in the future. I think it shows that some of these issues in terms of an ageing population, paying increasing pensions above and beyond inflation, above and beyond the money you've got coming into government, means that a lot of those funds get more and more costly to administer, and actually the burden of paying them always comes back to working people now. So with pensions of today, their pensions are being paid by the people who are working today. Mm-hmm. That's the way it works. So I know certainly in the United Kingdom, there's lots of political discussions about whether what they're doing with the triple lock is sustainable, and whether they should deviate from it. And you've even had the leader of the Conservative Party talking about means testing the state pension. Again, we need to have control over how we pay pensioners. There are no plans to do any of that. What we want to do is guarantee that they get their pension by sustaining the NI fund and guaranteeing that goes up in line with inflation. But we reevaluate this every 5 years through government actuaries, and then we can adjust that if we need to in the future, again, to guarantee that they get that pension that they deserve.
Just finally, in terms of NI, this was talked about in the UK before the election. It seems to have gone quiet again at the minute. But whether NI's thing itself is actually sustainable going forward, because in reality it's just income tax with a slightly different banner. Yeah. Is that something that you are looking at all across Treasuries, whether there's a potential argument for scrapping NI and just systing it all under a single tax?
Yeah. I mean, when the welfare state was set up in 1948, national insurance was exactly what it sounds. It was a tax on working people, not on income, tax on working people that went towards sickness benefits, pensions and the NHS. So just over 19% of what people pay in NI goes straight to the NHS. The rest is used for benefits. To get rid of that, as was mentioned by the previous Conservative government, you'd need to have money coming in from general taxation rather than working people. And there are pros and cons of that. I think at the moment the national insurance system works. What we're trying to do is make sure that the fund we have is sustainable in the long term. But there may be a wider conversation in the future about exactly how we pay for things like pensions, particularly in terms of people providing for their own pensions, because the state pension was never seen as an end-all. It was always seen as a safety net. And it's just trying to make sure that people do take responsibility for providing for themselves now and in the future.